So you see this mosquito occurs one time in the entire Quranic text. And we're going to be looking at that one instance today and looking at if truly we are even looking at a mosquito. And it's being foreshadowed here in the image, but we'll take it step by step. So this is the surah that we're looking at. It's Surah 2, Ayah 26. In here, we're going to read through some of these sin translations. We're looking at Sahih International, Pickthall, and Yusuf Ali here. I'll begin with Da'if International, reading, "Indeed, Allah is not timid to present an example, that of a mosquito, or what is smaller than it. And those who have believed know that it is the truth from their Lord," presumably this mosquito. "But as for those who disbelieve, they say, what did Allah intend by this example? He misleads many thereby and guides many thereby. And he misleads not except a defiantly disobedient." Okay, so that was Sahih International. What's your first impression, JC, about this friendly neighborhood mosquito here?
Well, every time that I think about this verse, I remember the Christian prince who normally makes fun of the animals in the Quran when he's talking with Muslims and says, "Why is it that there are so many animals in the Quran? That you have obviously the camel, the mosquito, and elephants, birds, the whole thing. It's like you have a zoo." So every time that he makes fun of something, it's generally the case that there is a problem. And the thing with mosquito, it yes, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like an itch that you cannot scratch. So it's odd, and the translations, they are different, as you are showing now on the screen. Something that is weird is if this is talking about a mosquito, every single translation would certainly have it there. Everybody would know the meaning, and every translation would be identical. But we see that that's not the case. They are very different, which is very sus.
Yes, and so Pickthall, we see at least something in terms of the word we have in red there at the top being translated at least to something. In Yusuf Ali, on the other hand, we see essentially just this things. That's how it's translated effectively. Things. Lowest as well as highest. We'll see as well in the breakdown of the interlinear how there's even more issues here. So we have this, we have mosquito in one area, we have gnat, which is also what St. Murad gives in his translation, which is gnat. So this is a big question mark on top of this word. So we're going to look at what it could be. This is what we're told is the
Actually,
root.
if I may, just another thought about this, that the fact that they don't have an actual word for mosquito that they all recognize and they can translate is really unusual. I mean, these are supposed to be people in Arabia. They are very, they know what mosquitoes are. They are a very, very common insect. So it's maybe the problem is that this root is something, there is a problem with the root. Like it's something a little bit unusual, because otherwise, really, everybody who speaks Arabic would know the word, write it down. The translators would follow suit. But maybe that's actually not the case, and the root happens to be a little bit unusual in order to arrive to this mosquito that confuses everybody.
That does seem to be what we do see then when we look at the supposed word. So on the top right, we can see here what is the claimed root, according to corpusquran.com, for this word we're seeing in the manuscript highlighted in the yellow. So as you can just, if you just took a look at this manuscript here, what I would say is, the way I would look at this is, okay, we have a consonant in the front, then we have many consonants after, at least, so we have 4 after, so presumably it would make sense, therefore, to assume that you're looking at a prefix rather than the first consonant being part of the root. But that is what we see in the claim. The claim is that this root in question is actually the ba, ein, dade. Another problem, of course, is that there is no dot for the dade. So this, on all accounts, is a sade, according to this manuscript. Of course, the case is that some of the diacritics, not others, they came far later, and therefore early manuscripts wouldn't distinguish, but that's further evidence to the point that this is most likely not meant to be read as a dade. But anyway, so we're told this is the root, ba, ein, dade. And if we look then on the table here, This is what we can see as being the word for mosquito in the Hebrew, Syriac, and in the Gez. You can see the consistency of this, effectively the root being the Y, T, and then Sh. So yatush, yutusha, yatush, it's pretty consistent, right? You can see how mosquito is firm and attested across these Semitic languages from all the way up north, all the way down to even past Yemen and Ethiopia. So this is pretty consistent. So you wouldn't expect such a feelingly random. There's no similarities whatsoever between these two. Well, the consistency of the yatush seeming root, and then this baduda, bauda, this word for mosquito in the Arabic. So what I would put forward if we were looking at like the way I approach these manuscripts when I'm looking at what the root of a word would be, is firstly one marbuta to me is orthographically made distinct in order to identify it as not part of the root. So I can identify that as being not in the root. So the sadde would be the final consonant in the root. So to me, if I'm looking at this, I'm looking at a prefix consonant and I'm looking at an ain wa sadde root. So if we go forward, I'm going to propose that we should actually be considering the root as ain wa sad, not what we had here as the ba ain dad. If we look at this root instead, it's not that well attested across the different Semitic languages. We see a meaning of to counsel, to take counsel in the Hebrew. But what I specifically want to highlight is what we see there at the very bottom. This is in the classical / Quranic Arabic, that this root is said to mean to become difficult, naughty, intricate, impossible to untie. And this is then the modern Arabic understanding of the root. However, there's something even more interesting when it comes to this particular root, which is that if we then look in, so that's what I want to show here. On the very bottom, you can see that the Proto-Semitic is actually far more interesting than the Quranic Arabic, because the Ain Sad and also Ain Wasad, we'll see that in a second as well with the source, that this root is attested in Safa'itic inscriptions as having the meaning of experience severe difficulty, more specifically to experience hardship, even so far as to be suffering, to have hard life. This is the meaning then in the inscriptions we can see attested with this root used, the Ain Wasade root. This is some more specific details here. So Safa'itic is the language in question where we can see this root attested. It's an ancient Northern Arabian dialect / script. It's used primarily by nomadic pastoralists in the Syro-Arabian desert, the Hara region spanning modern southern Syria, northern Jordan, and parts of Saudi Arabia, from approximately the 1st century BC to the 4th century CE. So that's then effectively 2 to 3 centuries then before the rise of the Quranic textual tradition. One example of this is the BS 48. This I got from, we'll see the source, I guess we'll see the source in a second. So the translation we can see here for BS 48 reads, he was ill and experienced hardship. That's where we can see the usage of that root in question. Here's then what we would deduce based on the full form. So if we look at the root as meaning difficulty or hardship, the next question, of course, is how does the full form conjugate that root? Because we're looking at a situation here where we have a prefix. In the Hafs, it's said to be the B prefix, and I do see a little dot there, so we'll go with that for now. So we have a B prefix, then we have the root Ain Wa Sad, and then we have either the T or the H suffix. In the dotting here, it appears actually to have a T implication with the 2 dots. That's interesting. So when it comes to the question of what exactly the final one is meant to be, because of the fact that the initial inking does not appear to be the same as the dotting, looking just at the Wettstein, we can't say for sure whether it was meant to be a T or an H. But we have one of the 2 options as the suffix. So looking at here, we have the root, hardship, then we have the H suffix. We'll just assume for now H, but we can explore also the option of T. For the H suffix, it would then mark the very consistent meaning of his. So third person reference to someone's possessive, right? So his, the root, and then the question becomes, how about the B? So his hardship, something like this would be for now. And then if we consider the B prefix, which is to by or in or with, is the meaning of this preposition. If we then add that to the full combo, we're looking at be prefix, the root of hardship, or to suffer, have a suffering, or mostly hardship, right? By or in his hardship would hence be, or in his difficulty, or with his difficulty, would hence be the strict rendering from the root as well as the prefix and the suffix. This is then what I was referencing the entire time and eventually got around to, which is in the Dictionary of Safavitic Inscriptions by Ahmed Al-Jalad and Karolina Jaworska, my bad. We see on page 56 where we have the at the reference we were speaking of, which is BS 48, where we see here how he was ill and experienced hardship. That's then the rendering of this root here, the ain wa sade asa root. So fixed it. We have so far. Then we have, instead of mosquito, we will put in its place in his hardship. An example even in his hardship. An example in his hardship. It sounds quite Christological already, huh?